Yes, my mother was a botanist, and she bred lilies as well. So, extraordinary, beautiful, beautiful things. Um, and she didn't do that commercially, she did it for her own pleasure, and she was very involved in the Royal Horticultural Society. But because of breeding lilies, we had this extraordinary garden, which was all lilies, but with paper bags over their heads at certain times of year. So it was a part of the garden that you went into. And I remember as a very young child, because obviously it's only at certain times of year that you have to put the paper bags over them to collect the pollen to breed for the pollination. But I remember going into this garden, and obviously I'd seen lots of pictures of flowers and gardens, and I'd been in lots of other people's gardens, and then I went into this special part of the garden that as a toddler I was very conscious my mother went off to, and I must have followed her into that part of the garden one day, and I just couldn't figure out these plants with paper bags. It just was very, very surreal, and it lodged in my mind afterwards. I think Cambridge certainly shapes who you are, and a college like this shapes who you are, although I don't live in college. It is the most wonderfully inspirational community to operate in, and Cambridge is extraordinary. The number of times you're in a room and you look around and you realise that, there's actually 10 Nobel Prize winners in the room with you. And so you have the great privilege of meeting the most remarkable people who are doing leading edge work. And obviously, a lot of those are very well-known names and they're recognised internationally. But equally, when you work in a college and you live in Cambridge, you also come across all the rising stars of the future as well. And those are people who are doing the most remarkable things and have identified something quite extraordinary and are making an impact already and really contributing to global societies, global knowledge, global wealth, but they're at an early stage of their careers, and of course it's wonderful to have met them when they were at that young stage and then just be able to watch them and their trajectory into the future. So I think it shaped me in terms of offering me the opportunity to meet people at different stages of their academic career and give me a little insight into what they're doing. Half the time, of course, you have no idea what they're talking about. But to come across those people is a real privilege. I think there's a distinction between a college like Lucy Cavendish and some of the women's universities that there are around the world. For instance, there are the Seven Sisters in the United States, which are women's universities, and then also there are women's universities all over the world, for instance, UA in South Korea. So that is an exclusively female university, whereas there is a real distinction between a college like this, where we are a women's college, but within the University of Cambridge. So for undergraduates, most of their teaching is in their university departments and their special subject areas. But of course, they then come back to this living environment, and they also get two forms of additional support. One is there are directors of studies and supervisors in every subject. So they see everybody who works with them on a very regular basis. So all their students will be seen by their subject specialist very regularly. And they will just make sure that they're progressing well academically, just keep on top of their essays, all of those things. And then the other side is the pastoral care. And there's a whole other range of people who are called tutors, and it sounds a little like they perhaps teach, but in fact they're not there for that. They're there for the students' welfare. So you could say that anybody who comes to a college like this in the University of Cambridge should do very well, because perhaps compared to some of the other universities where they may be lucky to see their director of studies once a year and perhaps there isn't the same level of pastoral care, that this is quite unique in what it offers, and it is unique in Europe. There isn't any other college for women who are over 21 in the whole of Europe. So it is a community that's still 370 students, so quite small, There are an extraordinary range of academic women who are research fellows and fellows here who can support their studies and act as an inspiration to those students who are here, both undergraduates and graduate students. So it is very special in that regard. It doesn't exclude men. Of course, many of us are married, have sons, and we welcome in academic male colleagues from outside this college, but within the university. So it is a vibrant community. It doesn't exclude male. It's not men hating, but it is actually a very supportive environment. And of course, what it does mean is, because it's very challenging academically being a student within Cambridge, that you can come back to an environment that's supportive, that is civilised. You always have nice food here. The loos are always nice and clean and well presented. You don't have young lads 19-year-old lads being sick outside your room at night. You can come across to this library, which is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in your pyjamas if you want to, and just go and come over here and follow up on something that you've woke in the middle of the night about. So there are all sorts of kind of just very human aspects to it that I think make it a very special place. I think it means different things on different days and in different moods. I don't think there's a sort of consistent definition of happiness for me. I think there are days where you want to see a lot of people, you love the idea of going to a party, and that kind of buzz would be happiness for you. I think there are other days where actually quiet reflection and the opportunity to just lie on the sofa and read a book uninterrupted is happiness. So I think most people probably need both things, just to succour different parts of their character and their life and their well-being. I see me really. When I was much younger, I was this was in the 60s, and I was very, very skinny and very tall, and I used to do quite a lot of modelling, and that was fun and I loved it, but I'm completely content with myself now, and I think that's one of the things about maturing really, that you don't hanker after being somebody else or don't wish that your life didn't show in your face. I think that it's a question of being content really, and being at peace with yourself, and not striving after something that you don't have. And I also think that one of the great things about being somewhere like Cambridge is that it's not a superficial place in that respect. Although there are all sorts of fabulous looking women here, of course, but actually it's much more about what people are doing, what they're discovering, what they're learning, how they're contributing. That is, and their inner self is much more important than their outer self, and I think it's probably a good place to grow old for that reason.